Okay, this is going to be sort of a combined video of how do you fix the major, what I would think is the most common flaw in people's golf swing, and at the same time, how do you control the most important aspect of a golf swing? And these two things are related. So let me go to a club first. So I think the most important aspect and what separates a good golfer, if you disregard, I mean, there's a level at the pro where if you can't drive it 300 yards, you can't be in the tour, right? That's one level of golf. But there's plenty of us people who were just too old that still want to play golf, not be on the PGA Tour, be good golfers within the range of physical capability that we have. So what is the fundamental skill? I would say number one, there's probably a couple of them. I'm going to address number one, but I'll explain what they are. So number one is, can you control the subtle angle of the club face here? So what by that I mean, by 1 or 2 degrees open or closed through the ball, do you have a sense of that and some control over it? If you can't control that predictably to some extent, now nobody can do it perfectly, that's the nature of golf. But if you don't have a general range of control over that, pretty hard to play golf, right? A couple degrees off, it's going off to the right, it's slicing, it's hooking, it's the other way. And here's what most people are doing. This is what most people have developed to try to control that. So what happens is, you take a golf club and you don't know, and most of us just start with grab a golf club, figure it out, right? So the natural impulse, just because of the way your body works to some extent, you're not inclined to get really steep with your shoulders, most people, so you probably are rotating a little bit flat, and you're probably throwing the club face open, and it kind of wants to do that because it's got a little weight out here. So if you go that way and stop, it wants to go open and it wants to go closed. So it kind of wants to do that, right? That's one part of it. And what most people end up doing is they figure out, okay, I'm going to try to hit a golf ball. They open it, they rotate into the ball. They've left the club face open because that's just, you're accelerating and it wants to be open a little bit just because of, first of all, you're a little too flat, and then it's open and hasn't caught up. And so they got to a good impact position, actually, maybe, right away, but they hit a giant slice out to the right. And so then they had to figure out, and not consciously, like their body was like, I know, you're feeling it, that face is open, how am I going to square that? And most people end up coming in like that, and then they stop their rotation, and the club face, hands stall, and the club face squares. And then that's how most people play. They're adding some loft, they're throwing away power, they've got this rapid opening and closing motion that they're always trying to time properly. And they think that they're, these pro golfers must have superior hand-eye coordination. And it's actually not mostly that. What they have is a superior method that is much more forgiving. So, how are we going to get that superior method? So, if you can learn to have control over the club face with a continuous rotation, that's ideal, right? So if you can come through and there's not this moment where you have to close, just imagine you're moving through, you get to square, you keep going, you can see why that's more reliable. And that's what every good golfer is doing. They're not flipping the club here to square it up. They're continuing to move through. So how do we get control over the club face, and what what does that look like with our bodies? What are we controlling to control that club face? So there could be different things, and one of them is the stalling, and one of them is how strong your grip is. But those are not aspects of your swing, right? Those are static elements that you might still have these other, you might still have things that make it have to square awkwardly and close quickly and do things like that. So this is what we have to control. If you look at the trainer, and if you have a trainer, that's great. If you look at the trainer, this is closed. I'm in the middle. I'm at the ball. This is closed. This arm going up over this arm, closed. This is open. That's it. So people talk about rotating their hands in a golf swing, right? So you need to rotate your hands, and people do these maneuvers. You do that, and then you square it up. So you try to learn this. First of all, you throw it open still, then you try to learn this maneuver to close it, and then you go through it, which works fine. It works. It's better than nothing. But I think there's a simpler way, and I think it'd be better to be less conscious of those kind of maneuvers, and just pay attention to what is opening and closing the club face when you're working through this area right here. So again, what's open now? Watch what's happening with my arm. So now I've got a square club face, and if I open the club face, you can see that this arm goes down relative, and this arm goes up. So I'm not paying attention to this so much. What I am doing is feeling the relative up and down motion of my arms, or if I think of this as a plane that I'm making, the changing orientation of that plane. So it could happen in my shoulders, or it could happen just more in the movement of my arms. But if I think about it being here, and think about that plane as being fixed, that controls my club face. So I can feel that in the relationship of my arms and in my forearms. So really the relationship of the forearms is controlling the club face. So now, if you take your trainer, it sort of almost does this for you, assuming you don't sit and open it and close it. If you do these sort of half circle, you can see that the plane of my arms is following then the plane of the trainer, especially in this important area right here, which is what you want to focus on, right? If that goes off up here and comes back, and I get back to that, if I'm focused on moving my arms through this space this way, that's the important thing. My body can sort out how to get to a position to do that, and if I'm moving through, my body can figure out what it wants to do to not hurt my wrists or whatever it is over here. So get a feeling for this, and as you're swinging, draw your kind of half circle. Don't do any of this. This is the basic, I would say the most basic task you want to figure out with this trainer. So I'm paying attention to, I'm swinging the trainer and drawing a circle and keeping it flat, but I'm attending right here because I want to have something that I can transfer over to my club, right? This isn't a club, but my body's the same when I pick up a club. So I can feel, what is this relationship right here when I swing my trainer? So I'm feeling that. I'm feeling, first off, that compared to the swing I naturally had, this shoulder is moving much more this way. So the shoulders are rocking much more in an up and down fashion in order to maintain that. And specifically, if I just focus on this, that just happens. I'm focused right here. So get your feeling from your trainer. And now, same feeling. So if you immediately want to do this, go. Oh, wait, that's not it, right? I immediately want to do that. No. Feeling is this and this. This and this. Just this little move through here. And now I'll get everything square, and I'm going to feel that unchanging plane of my forearms. So let's do that. Okay. Nice controlled partial swing there. Started a little right, but my simulator is not set up to. It's not super accurate in terms of left or right. So, but as you can see, dead straight. So in that case, now I've controlled this, so now my path and my face are perfectly square. Let me just aim that whole unit a little more toward the middle here. So we'll try that again. There's another one. There was one right down the middle. So that's good. And then just keep working on that over and over. So do one more. I'm really aware of this small orientation right here through the ball, so keep that the same. There, hit the rope again. Should be perfect. So pretty good. And now that's not actually the ideal way to train this. So what you're training is not, I mean, you can see it works fine, but what you're training is awareness is the important thing. So what you want to do to get it to the next level actually is, now I want to be perfect, but then I'm going to let this arm get a little bit above this one. So feel what that feels like. I'm going to go a little above this time. So thin that a little bit. We'll see what we get. So we got a little baby draw. We didn't get that much, but we do it again. Get better contact here. I'm going to let it get a little that way. Feel what a little that way feels like. Okay. There we go. Started it off that way. Got the club face closed. Pulled it. Went that way. And I'll tell you why this is important after I do a few of these. So now I'm going to try to feel the other. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to feel the plane to be pointing a little too much that way, which means my club face is a little open. I'm going to come in with this plane of my arms now pointing a little off to the right here. So see if I did it. Yep, a little baby fade. So I got a little bit of fade out of that. So why is this better? Well, first of all, you're exploring the whole range, and you're actually, it's proven that learning this kind of motor awareness, people do better if they, like if you try to throw 100 bullseyes playing darts, it's not as good as if you tried to throw a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left, a little bit above, a little bit below. Your brain actually is collecting better information by moving around your target and exploring a whole range of things. So that's one thing. Then the other thing is, now you get out on the course, you are hitting everything a little bit too much of a draw. So what do? You've learned it. I've learned I just need to change this plane a little bit to fix that. So I'm overdrawing it. Now I'm just going to change my plane a little bit coming into the ball. And that should, if it doesn't produce a fade like it did in this case, if I'm overdrawing it, that brings me back to neutral. So you're learning how to move yourself back to center as well. So that's it. That's what I think is the easiest way to learn how to control this club face. You don't want to control it by stalling. You can see why that would be unpredictable. Then you've got a very small window. Whereas if I keep moving, I've got very little rotation of the club face through the ball, right? So learn to control this plane, work with your trainer, and then we'll see how I do when I get to bigger. So as you get bigger, there's more inclination to, well, for one thing, at some point this elbow folds, right? And that changes the plane, but then it comes back. So that's all fine. You just want to be aware right through this section, the relationship of your forearms basically. So have an awareness right through there. And I can go bigger, but I'm now very conscious of my forearm plane. And now let's see how I do. So obviously becomes more of a challenge as you go bigger and you go off and have to get back. But let's try it here. Be very aware of moving right through there, and now I'll go for a bigger shot here. And that still seemed pretty good. So, yep, good shot. So, because I've developed this awareness here, I went somewhere, but then I came back to it, got through it nice and square. So, it happens in both directions a little bit too. So if your first move is to open way up, it's going to make your life harder. So you see most pros keep this down, have this relationship, get to there, are still keeping this orientation, and most people now release this way. So people used to release more commonly that way, but because most people analytically understand this is more reliable, most people release that way and then go ahead and go that way. So work on that with the trainer. That is I would say, if you want to get good at golf, that is #1 skill, especially that you can learn with the trainer. So I would say #2 skill, hit the ground in the right place. So you can control the club face and hit the ground just a little in front of the ball for most shots, unless you're hitting a driver. Most shots, hit the ground a little bit in front of the ball, control the angle of the club. That's the skill of golf.